Game 2 of the NBA Finals was a lot more competitive than Game 1. Instead of Boston jumping out to a big lead and never looking back, Dallas actually looked to be in control at times, as this one featured all sorts of different runs, lead changes, and some really big plays during the closing minutes. The Celtics stuck with their strategy of switching all screens involving Luka, and he of course responded by playing one-on-one. This time it's Derek White who he takes to the paint for a turnaround jumper, and it was the exact same thing against Kyrie. He too gets White switched onto him, isolates from the wing, and drives in strong for a finish. In these situations, Boston's only ever gonna bring extra help from above the break. Here it's Holiday who sinks to the nail, and the idea is to make these role players knock down threes, which PJ does on this one. Remember, they're putting Tatum on Gafford and having him switch onto the ball after screens. This time it's White who loads up early, and Kyrie again hits PJ on the wing. PJ tries to attack the closeout but gets stopped inside the arc. So in order for these stars to get downhill, they had to avoid the nail help. With Kyrie in the corner, White won't load up early, meaning that it's easier for Luka to touch the paint as he gets to a floater. And for most of the first, these two just ended up taking turns cooking. Tatum's late to jump out on a switch and Kyrie's got a jumper. Then Luka gets Tatum on an island as everyone clears out. Again, you can see how Kristaps has completely abandoned Kleba above the break, so it's gonna take some tough shot making for the Mavs to counter. Thankfully for them, Luka was putting on a clinic. This time they bring Kristaps into the action with a high ball screen, he hedges, and Luka gets right around him for a tough pull-up three. When it's Holiday, he'll use his size advantage by playing out of the post. He slowly works his way to the middle, initiates contact for some separation, and draws a foul on the swipe down. After Luka checked out, it was Kyrie's turn to play one-on-one, and on the first possession, he was absolutely hounded by Jaylen Brown, who read every move before forcing a traveling violation. So instead of isolating, this time Kyrie's gonna attack Kristaps in ball screen action. The big man is still jumping out in a hedge, and Kyrie easily gets around him on his way to a tough floater. Then when he has the switch onto a more favorable matchup like Sam Hauser, he's comfortable going back to the isolation ball. He gets around him on a drive for some more points at the rim. So the Mavs were essentially doing the same things as in Game 1, Luka and Kyrie just happened to be firing on all cylinders. And from a strategic standpoint, Boston could say the same. They stuck with what worked, getting favorable switches for their wings to attack, collapsing the defense on drives, and kicking it out to shooters to put them in rotation. This one results in an awesome play from Holiday, but they weren't all that effective. For one, Tatum was struggling as a finisher around the rim, so on plays that should have ended in layups he failed to convert, but even more noticeable was how poorly they shot from outside. This is exactly what they want. Jaylen drawing two on a drive, hitting a sharpshooting Sam Hauser on an island. Sometimes it just isn't your night, and the Celtics really felt that. They created open three after open three, yet couldn't throw a rock into the ocean as they missed every single one of their first 8 long-range attempts. This could have ended up turning into a disaster, but they had one saving grace: the free throw line. They got into the bonus early, then used that mismatch hunt to their advantage by playing with physicality, which resulted in them finishing the quarter shooting 10 of 10 on free throws. That takes us to the final play, where, like clockwork, Jaylen gets into the defense and kicks it to an open shooter. Al Horford finally hits their first three of the game, which makes it abundantly obvious how perfect the Mavs have to play in order to win this series. Just think about it for a sec. The Celtics shot 1 of 9 from 3, Luka and Kyrie both did basically everything right, and after 12 minutes the Mavs were only up by 1 possession. Still, at the start of the second, Luka was back in and right back to cooking. He opened with an easy mid-range jumper over Pritchard, and you know he's really feeling it when he starts doing things like this, running off of multiple screens to the corner for a 3-point shot off of movement that hits nothing but net. It didn't matter who stood in front of him, they were being served buckets. Jaylen does a good job of stopping a drive, only to get dotted on a fall-away jumper, but you can't win a basketball game alone. When they send extra help, remember it's coming from up top. No inside passes, no corner three, they're making PJ hit from above the break and he fails to convert. Unfortunately, that was a big story in both games 1 and 2. Role players have been forced to make shots from the top of the key or the wing, and not only have they struggled, it's been abysmal. Non-Luka Mavs in this series are 5 of 30 or 16.7% from 3. Then when they finally get one in the corner, courtesy of some Luka mastery, Josh Green isn't able to take advantage. I do like some of the adjustments Dallas made to counteract this though. For one, they went to a 5-out lineup, which not only gives Luka more space to drive, it also creates the opportunity for Derrick Jones to cut into the lane for easy points. But when Jones is the one screening for Luka, Kristaps is just going to stay glued to the ball, knowing that they are more than comfortable leaving him open on the pop. This cued another adjustment, setting that screen at half court, so instead of a pop, Jones has a ton of space to roll into, and now when Kristaps steps up, Luka has his first lob of the entire series. So I think they looked considerably better offensively than in game 1. Of course, if Kristaps is late to jump out, Luka has a pull-up 3, and once that ball was rolling, it felt like they could seriously take control of the game heading into the break if it weren't for the disappearance of Kyrie Irving. If Boston's game plan is to make this backcourt beat them with one-on-one scoring, it's imperative that both of them are getting the job done. Kyrie was basically a non-factor in the second though, shooting 1 of 5 after that scorching hot first quarter. So no above the break threes, nothing from Kyrie. Their second quarter offense was once again whatever Luka could create, and as well as he played, it wasn't enough to keep up with the oncoming barrage of the Celtics. One thing they really like to do is take whoever Kyrie's guarding and put him in the dunker spot. That way when a slasher gets into the defense, instead of a rim protector, it's a small guard who can't possibly cover all that ground. Or they'll bring Kyrie into the action and hunt for him as the mismatch. Tatum sets up on an open side, PJ comes over from the weak side early, and Jalen does a great job of filling out space on a baseline cut. What's worrisome is that even on the plays that Boston didn't score, they got the shot they wanted every single time. Tatum collapsing the defense, patiently finding the open man, and a great look from 3 that just doesn't drop. That help has to keep coming though, because as soon as Tatum starts a drive and doesn't see it, he's taking it all the way with aggression. So pick your poison. Do you want Tatum driving into less help and potentially scoring a layup? Or would you rather live with the results of these great shooters getting quality looks and hoping they miss? Well, when the Celtics play with pace, in particular Jaylen Brown, you don't really have a choice. The defense isn't in proper position to bring help, and an up fake leaves him with easy points at the rim. On the next one, they do collapse though. Pritchard uses that opportunity to attack a closeout, and from there the defense is in a complete scramble. Holiday's the beneficiary as he takes it to the rack for 2. Speaking of Holiday, he too can create the initial advantage. This time he and Tatum play a little game of hot potato, which results in yet another layup, or he can be that guard playing out of the dunker spot. Tatum applies the pressure, drops it off, and it's just too easy. Not enough can be said about how good Holiday played in the first half. 17 points on 7 of 9 shooting, many of which came on drives like this. And it all starts with getting the matchups they want. Luka on Tatum, an easy blow by, and he goes up through contact for 2 points and a foul. About a minute later, it was Jalen who had Luka on him, so he's the one who's going to get things started with that initial drive. The defense collapses, he kicks it out, and the Celtics can do what they do best, moving the ball, attacking off the catch, eventually finding who else but Drew Holiday in the corner for 3. After a slow start, they responded with a big second quarter, and at the half, it's a 3-point Celtics lead. In the third, the Mavs again tried something different. Remember, Tatum's on Gafford, and they made an effort to exploit that matchup by giving the big man some post touches. And to be honest, it worked pretty well. Not that it should become a huge source of offense for them, but I'd expect them to lean into this a little bit more in Game 3. Maybe that means more post-ups for Luka as well. Because the Celtics are bringing help from up top, it's a really easy pass to make to counter the double, and from there PJ can play off the catch, getting into the paint for his signature floater. Here's what it looks like when Luka posts up and they don't send any extra help. I'm really not sure what you're supposed to do against a guy who's hitting shots like this. They're still going to be switching all screens, of course, but this time there's a miscommunication and Holiday botches the assignment, so Lively ends up with a dunk. Mazzulla immediately called a timeout, and I'm not sure what he said, but they came out of that huddle with a newfound passion for defense. It helps that Kyrie stayed cold, not making a single shot in the third quarter, but it was more about how on point their coverages were. When Luka comes off a screen, Kristaps is playing the ball in a hedge, and that leaves the pop open, but Tatum deflects that pass to force a turnover. Same thing against Kyrie. Kristaps picks up, Jones is all alone on the pop, and it's becoming very clear why the Celtics don't respect him as a shooter. Just look at how the floor is set up on this one. All they care about is not letting Luka get easy opportunities inside the arc, and when his drive gets cut off, he tries a circus pass. That goes straight into the hands of Jalen, who kicks it ahead to start the break as they turn defense into offense. As for their offense, at this point I'm just beating a dead horse if I continue to say the words drive and kick, but at least something interesting happens this time as Drew grabs a second chance and drops it off to Tatum down low. Seriously though, I can't stress enough how easy it was for the Celtics to create high quality threes. If they have a hot shooting night in one of these upcoming games, the final score could end up looking obscene. This wasn't that night though, shooting just a measly 10 of 39 or 26% from outside. As a result, this third quarter was all about finding ways to score inside the arc, and sometimes that just means going up with aggression on these drives. Both Jalen and Jason have been getting into the defense at will, and with Luka as the low man, there just isn't enough resistance at the rim. That could also mean exploiting all of that space created by the 5 out with timely cuts. When Tatum draws 2 in the post, instead of standing around, Holiday dives down the lane for easy points. And on this one, Holiday's in the dunker spot, which means that when Tatum beats Luka off the dribble, which he will, all he has to do is finish over Kyrie at the rim. So they counteracted the poor outside shooting with dominant inside scoring, making 80% of their 2s in the third. But some 3s are just too good to pass up on, and Jalen finally knocks one down to give them a 13-point lead. Speaking of finally knocking one down, what if I told you that after the wizardry on the pass from Luka, the Mavs supporting cast hits their first above the break 3 since the first quarter? Then Kyrie finally decided to show up, beating Holiday off the dribble and drawing a foul for a chance to cut it down to 6. So after going down 13, they get it back to 2 possessions, well until Pritchard does this to make it a 9-point game entering the fourth quarter. In that fourth, the Celtics do what the Celtics do, except now when they move the ball to find an open shooter, those 3s are finally starting to drop. And I don't only mean corner spot-ups, I mean shots like this from Derek White at the end of the shot clock. Once again, it's Kyrie's man in the dunker spot, so when Tatum drives and goes up with aggression, the only real counter is to send him to the line, but I don't want to let him off the hook completely because he definitely left more than a few points on the board with some of these missed layups. Jalen, on the other hand, could not be stopped. Just like in game 1, he had a field day on these drives, shooting 7 of 10 on his 2s. On the other end, the Mavs take advantage of Boston's scheme by first getting Tatum switched on to Kyrie, which leaves White on Gafford. Like I said, these post-ups could turn out to be a valuable counter, and Gafford was making some crucial plays in the fourth. This time he crashes the glass for a second chance and draws a foul. Kyrie was also making crucial plays. After drawing help in isolation, he drops it into the big man for a free 2 points, and in semi-transition, he has no trouble beating White off the dribble as he gets to a layup of his own. If you remember earlier though, I said that in order for the Mavs to win this series, it would require both Kyrie and Luka firing on all cylinders. Well, in the first quarter they did that, and they won the quarter, but in quarters 2 and 3, it was only Luka, and now in the fourth, it was only Kyrie. After being forced to create almost all of the offense and having to defend the Jays in space, Luka started to gas out, which meant he was settling for tougher outside shots and leaving them short, resulting in a 1 of 6 quarter. In addition to Luka's struggles, as a team, the Mavs didn't make a single 3, and those two things typically aren't going to lead to great offensive results. Especially when you're facing a team like the Celtics who have the best defensive backcourt in the NBA. Here they force one of Luka's 8 turnovers, which starts some transition offense of their own. Nobody picks up Holiday on the wing, and he's got a wide open 3. Then a play later, it was the backcourt again, but on offense. Holiday gets into the defense, draws help, kicks it out to White, who hits a huge jumper to put them up 14. That could have been the dagger if it weren't for another timeout that completely shifted the direction of the game. The Mavs have another botched switch against a Luka ball screen, and against a passer of his caliber, that really cannot happen. Then on defense, Luka gets beat on a backdoor cut, but they do a great job of executing a peel switch and he gets a hand on the kickout pass. Their defense was playing with a sense of urgency, sending 2 bodies at Tatum and scrambling to cover all bases, which results in a tougher look from 3. Luka comes down on the other end with an isolation, beats Horford off the dribble, and slowly steps into a 3-point play for his only made basket of the quarter. Down 5 and desperately needing a stop, Tatum once again gets downhill, but Jones is there to meet him with a huge rejection, which led to the controversial fast break. Was it a missed foul call? Was it the block of the year from Derek White? I'll leave that up to your interpretation, but whatever the case may be, it essentially sealed the game. All it takes is a bucket from Jalen to slam that door shut, and the Celtics hold on to their lead, defending home court for the 2nd game in a row. Most of the strategies used in this game were similar to in Game 1. The Celtics were hunting for mismatches to isolate, and the Mavs were giving up the switch, and if you want to check out my last video, I went way more in depth on why that doesn't work. In my opinion, they need to find an alternative for the switching. On the other side of things, Boston was once again making Dallas play one-on-one and bringing help from up top, to which the Mavs had no real answer for outside of some heroic shot making from Luka. They absolutely have to get a better performance from Kyrie, and they absolutely have to get better outside shooting from their role players, because the Celtics likely just had their worst 3-point shooting performance of the series and still walked out with a win. It's only a matter of time before that luck runs out, and we'll have to see if the Mavs can defend their home court in Game 3. If you enjoyed this breakdown, make sure to drop a like, subscribe, and turn my post notifications on to be first on more content. If you're interested in my more in-depth research, make sure to check out my website and social media profiles. You can find those links in the description. Feel free to let me know down in the comments what you thought of this matchup. As always, I hope you all have a great day, and I'll catch you guys in the next one.